I'm Reed Fetters with Tacoma Rising. I'm here with Devin Page and Anders Bjorn of Colvos Construction. And we've got a couple questions for them on site down here at the old DeVita building, and which is now, the new name is, what is it?
So the name of the building is Sandberg.
Sandberg.
So it was built in 1908, been here a long time, and kind of an iconic building. At one point, it was Sandberg Schoenfeld. I think I'm saying that right, Schoenfeld, old furniture store. And there, each floor was connected by a ramp, so a forklift could move furniture throughout this whole building, which is kind of an interesting. It would be nice if we still had the ramps.
That would be nice.
It'd be helpful for us, but they're not here any longer.
For sure. And so the name DeVita came from the tenant that was here before.
Yeah, correct.
Which is prior to me getting here. That's why I called it the DeVita building. So the Sandberg.
Yep.
And is that what the building's gonna be called as a multifamily?
That's a good question. I don't know if they're gonna change the name for specifically for the apartments or not.
Okay. What does this mean to Colvos to be able to build one, I would say, an iconic building downtown Tacoma, but to do a big conversion like this?
Oh, it means a lot I think for both of us, for our company, and to just build something like this down the road from our office, which we love our office and our location and where our home is. And it's really cool to be a part of an adaptive reuse project like this with BCRA, with Mike Bartlett, some great partners here in Tacoma, and keeping it local. And it's also good for Tacoma, just for good housing and using cool old buildings in Tacoma, because there's a lot of them here, so pretty cool.
Yeah, I would add the adaptive reuse component, I think, is big. It's something that people talk about a lot, but practically, it doesn't work a lot of the time. It just doesn't pencil out. So Mike's really big into adaptive reuse. He has the El Gaucho building and the Melting Pot and the Willamette building, which we're actually working on as well over in Alley Valley. So he has kind of a passion for taking these older structures and repurposing them. So this is kind of the next chapter, I guess, so to speak, for this building, is bringing some more housing to Tacoma.
Does this type of project make you guys nervous when you do a bid and come at it and say, hey, yeah, we want it, we can do it for this price?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think the things that maybe you get a little nervous about are just these older buildings, and you're starting demolition, and you're kind of, what are we going to discover that maybe we're not thinking about or we haven't seen? We did have at least a few months to salvage and kind of go through the building, so that was helpful to discover what was involved there. Had some pre-construction, so that also helps when you're a little nervous. But other than that, I feel like we've had a good plan of attack, a good team, a lot of coordination before we started construction helped with that.
Yeah, I would say also logistics is a big deal here. Sure. We're right downtown, and originally when we were putting the numbers together for our estimate, I think we were planning on using the freight elevator, or actually it's a passenger elevator more or less, but it's super slow. So what we ended up doing is, over here we have a material lift. So what we ended up doing is clawing some money back from the subs, because they were planning on hoisting through a slow elevator, moving materials up and down. All these studs would have had to come up through the elevator, and instead we can pull everything up on a lift that has a pretty high capacity. So our superintendent's got a good tool to use to get material in and out that has made things a little more efficient.
You mentioned the lift. When I got into town 6 years ago, there was probably 11 tower cranes, all multifamily. And now we've seen a decline in that. So I do love the lift coming up here, because it makes me feel like, hey, we're moving again. How do you feel about the future of multifamily development in Tacoma as we go, getting into 2026 over the next couple of years? Do you think we'll see more of this downtown or around the downtown area?
I think a lot of it just depends on if projects pencil. There was obviously a pretty long period of robust multifamily development, not just here in Seattle regionally. One thing that put brakes on that, I feel like, is interest rates, when they jumped up last year. So I think there's a lot of projects in the queue. We haven't seen as many opportunities on the multifamily side, unfortunately, but I think the need here exists. There's a tremendous need for housing in Tacoma, but the projects don't happen if they don't pencil. So, the city putting the multifamily tax exemption back into place is big. If interest rates, I feel like, could come down a little bit, maybe construction costs, stay steady or maybe drop a tad, that would be helpful too. But I think the city's definitely interested in getting more multifamily development and the needs there. So I don't know why it wouldn't happen.
I also think in this kind of market that we're in and going into, their subcontractors seem to be a little more interested, a little more hungry, if you will, to attack some more projects here. A lot of our subcontractors we work with, they like working in Tacoma. A lot of them are here from the South End, and so I think there may be some opportunity there as well.
You guys mentioned we're standing on some old carpet. What's the plan here, guys? I mean, you're not coming back to take this out? You guys just gonna leave this in?
Yep, that's the plan. That's the current plan, that we'll put flooring over the top of it. So currently we've framed over the top of it, and that was kind of the plan from the owner and design part of the program. And early on, we priced a few different options, and so that's what was decided to move ahead with. There are some areas on the upper floors where it was decided to remove some of the carpet just because it kind of was just older and got damaged through demolition. So, but throughout the whole building, the carpet's going to stay.
Yeah, Horizon Partners, the developer, Mike's into sustainability, salvaging materials. We actually took quite a bit of all the light fixtures, for instance, in this building were salvaged, and it was, dozens and dozens of pallets. But part of Mike's push for sustainability is looking at things we can keep, things we can save, and the thought was we'd keep the carpet here, and that would function as an acoustical layer, floor to floor, as opposed to buying new product and putting down an acoustical layer. So it does present some challenges. Obviously cleanliness is one of them. It's an active construction site, so it's going to require a little more cleanup. But at the end of the day, everything stays. We don't have to demo it out. It doesn't go in a landfill, and it just helps that sustainability piece of the building.
That's really interesting. I've never seen that before, and I'm intrigued by it. And I think it's a very creative idea, and hopefully it works out. Now, as we're talking, as we're here, we're seeing obviously framing, and we talked about there's some mechanical rough-ins going in. What's the schedule look like? When do you guys think that you'll be closed out, tenants moving in?
The plan right now is to be done in June of 26. And we're tracking. Hopefully we can beat that, but that's the plan right now. And we've made good progress coming up through as you go to each floor, you can see the progress coming up through the building. We've had plenty of challenges along the way, but we're definitely a very collaborative group and all about teamwork and working together with the client, the design team. Like we mentioned before, BCRA has been a great partner in the whole effort to keep things on track and moving ahead.
So maybe a June 2026 Tacoma Rising tour. Maybe.
Hey, yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. That'd be a good way to kick off the summer, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, once we get finishes in place and get ready to open, be happy to have you guys do a tour so everybody can enjoy it.
Well, guys, thank you very much. I'm really excited to check out the rest of the building. Hi, I'm Reed Fetters with Tacoma Rising, and I have a good friend with me today, Devin Page of Colvos Construction. Devin, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. President of Colvos, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, just for the folks listening, tell us about Colvos. What's the background of Colvos?
Yeah. So Colvos is 9 years old in January. Next year will be our 10th year in operation. We're a commercial general contractor based here in Tacoma. Our office is in Opera Alley, kind of by the McMenamins building. We do a wide variety of projects, commercial projects and multifamily. We have about, I think, 48 employees, full-time employees. And ownership of the business is myself, and I have a business partner, Anders Bjorn. So we kind of divide our duties, and we've been steadily growing the business for 9 years up to the point that we're at today, and do a lot of great work in South Puget Sound, but also work all over Western Washington and even a couple projects in Eastern Washington. But yeah, we're just still growing the business. It feels like it doesn't feel like 9 years.
I'd say you guys have grown, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, we always have tried to have that startup mentality, so we don't lose the core values and the things that we brought to the table on day one. We want to maintain that excitement. But yeah, we're happy with where we're at.
I think I've told you this before, but I'll be driving around, I'll see Colvos just pop up at a project, and I get excited because I just think you represent Tacoma so well that I just get excited about it. And I like seeing general contractors coming down to Tacoma because I feel like that shows that Tacoma's on the map. People want to be down here. What I do like seeing Colvos around because I just feel like that's Tacoma, and you guys represent Tacoma really well. So that's why I was kind of joking around, but it's not on one type of project; it's across the board. And I was like, oh man, they do that too. Good.
Yeah,
good to know.
Appreciate that. We have a great marketing department to make sure that we get our name
you do
out there. I'm sure you see our signs all over. But
I do.
Yeah, Anders and I worked at a couple Seattle-based general contractors. And
where were you before? Which ones were they?
We worked together at Anderson Construction.
Okay.
I also worked at Rush and Gig Harbor. And before Anderson, I was with Skanska in Seattle.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So kind of a nice mix of large and small and multinational and local companies. But Anders and I both live down here in South Puget Sound. He's in Puyallup, and I'm in Gig Harbor. So I think we recognized that there was a little niche here in Tacoma that could be filled. There are some great general contractors in South Sound, but we kind of thought that this would be an area that would be growing steadily long term. Obviously, Seattle has its own growth patterns. As you know, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in Tacoma, and we really wanted to be part of that. So that was a big factor in putting our headquarters here.
I like the fact that you're diverse too. And one of the things, if people asked me 5 years ago or prior to COVID, what's important, I would have said project diversity. Don't just get into one thing. I think we learned that after 08, 09. But I learned more about you guys as I saw your signs up on different projects, and I was like, oh my goodness, they do that too, which is great. And we haven't actually worked together yet. I haven't done much, but I've been on multiple things that you guys have been looking at. We just haven't been at a position where the trigger's been pulled moving forward. But I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping that's coming soon. You mentioned that you and Anders met a while ago.
Yep.
What made you guys decide to join forces and start Colvos?
Yeah, good question. I always had a goal of owning my own business since I was younger. I didn't know when it was going to happen or how I was going to make it happen, but at that time, it was a good opportunity. I had left my previous employer. Anders was still gainfully employed at Anderson. We both have 4 kids, so there was a lot of, and mortgages and all the things.
Yep.
So there was a lot of thought that went into it, like, can we actually do this and support our families, and make this successful? And thankful for me, Anders, joined me and participated. But I think it was, it was timing. We'd both been in the business for 15 years, so because it's such a relationship-based business, and not only with clients but subcontractors and industry professionals. We felt like we had a pretty good network and a really good support system. I floated the idea to a few colleagues and a few partners, and everybody was, you should do it, So the hardest part is just the leap of faith of deciding I'm going to do this now, and then it's like, oh crap, how do we get it done? But we spent 4 months planning, talking about what we wanted the business to be, not only in the short term, but 3, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and kind of talk through the processes and the growth patterns that we could put in place to get there. And I guess it made enough sense in my head that, we were comfortable pulling that trigger, and we had the support of our families, needed that.
That's a big help.
Yes, it is. So, we pulled the trigger. We found a little office space, which we're currently in on Opera Alley. I think it was a head shop before, so we came in and cleaned a few things out, and the rent was, I think it was $1,100 a month.
Wow.
It was cheap.
Yeah.
And we built all our own furniture. We tried to do, because you have a set amount of capital that you have to work with, and every dollar you spend goes out the door in the short term. So I think we had replaced the batteries in our iPhones because we didn't want to pay to get new phones, and we debated on getting the $300 printer, the $250 printer, but I think having the confidence and the support again from potential clients. We had a few potential employees in mind, which I'm sure we'll get to how important that is. But just the basic foundational building blocks that we felt comfortable enough to pull the trigger.
I think 15 years is that magic number too. You get to 10 and you're feeling confident, but you're still, I that's how I felt. I think it was about 15 for me as well. But I don't know if you've always wanted to start your own business, it's hard to shut that down. Because even when my dad had started or had his own business, and I've talked about this in the past, I didn't know what the term entrepreneur meant until I was older. But my dad was self-employed, and I don't know, there was something about that. I had that fever. And I remember sitting in my first job review as an architect, and they asked me what my 10-year goal was, and I said I want to own my own business. And they're like, well, why not be a partner? I go, I guess I could be. I didn't really think about that, but even then I was like, I wanted to start my own business. And I think once you have that, it won't go away until you try it, at least.
Yeah, agree.
Doesn't always work, but it's
growing up, my folks had their own business, so I kind of saw what went into that. A lot of hard work, but it's, you also see the rewards of it.
Absolutely.
And again, we still kind of feel like a startup, even though it's almost 10 years now. But as you grow, the company grows, and you recognize you have a bunch of mouths to feed now. Yeah. So it goes from not wanting to let yourself down and your family down to not wanting to let an additional 50 employees down. So that's really what drives me is, I'm always trying to feed the machine, make sure all our employees are, happy and driven and able to achieve their own goals. And, it's kind of snowballed from there, but I don't think I'll ever, if we make it to 20, 30, 40 years, I'll still be looking over my shoulder. I think you have to really to survive.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. What do you think, what would you consider your bread and butter to be for Colvos? What is that project type that's your easy peasy?
Yeah. Well, like you said, we've always tried to be diverse in the markets that we work in. I've been through a couple economic swings, and they're not pretty.
No, they're not.
So we don't want to be pigeonholed into any particular market. We work in a wide variety of healthcare, self-storage, commercial office, TIs, restaurants, tribal work. I would say that, what we do most by quantity of projects is tenant improvements. We're very good at those, whether it's office TIs or healthcare TIs. Working anywhere where, for instance, in an acute hospital setting, you have to be in and out and
Yeah.
unnoticed.
Yeah.
And there's considerations like infection control and things like that, there's a different level of risk with those projects. And, they're greater challenges. I think for us, we like the challenging stuff, and that could be, we're taking on a brand new self-storage build that we've never done before, or we're, working in the emergency room at Mason General, they're different types of projects, but they have great challenges. So I think that's, what our folks are best at.
I dabbled in healthcare in, 09, 2011, somewhere around there. It was in 08, 09, everything just stopped. And I was on the East Coast. I was in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. And there were the bubble markets, right? DC, Seattle, that were still things were going on. Charleston was not that way. So I ended up going to a firm that did healthcare, and that was kind of a safe place to be. I think it was Obamacare and a lot of other things. A lot of money was being dumped into it, which was great, but it was very complex, very complex. We did an MRI, and where you have the precision that you have to be in that room, it's really the challenge. It's more exciting and trying to figure out, like I do I've done a lot of TI over the years, and you get used to them. They're pretty much the same thing. But when you get into healthcare, it's just there's so many factors. And when you're building it, like you said, infection control and all the negative pressure, all the things that you have to do, like there's a lot of things going on when you're in and out. So it's interesting.
Well,
sure.
I'd also say we tend to glom on to our clients who sometimes they'll do a variety of different project types as well. So. For instance, we were talking about Rain Schaub earlier.
Yeah.
So the first time I met Rain is when we built Cuerno Bravo, obviously a restaurant, but he has properties throughout South Sound. So we've also worked on a Les Schwab, for instance, for him, or an attorney's office, that in one of his buildings. So for us, it's more the relationship with the client, be able to establish that. And then because we're diverse in the types of projects that we do, we can zig and zag as our clients do, and be able to support them on different project types.
That's I do the very similar thing. J Squared is a big client of mine, and I have gone from designing coffee roasters to restaurants with music venues, and obviously co-working is kind of would be my kind of, I don't want to say bread and butter, but that's where I kind of specialize in. But having those big clients, or those clients that are constantly doing things it's always different, is exciting too, because every project is different, which is fun. So I've done a few things in the past where I only focus on co-working for 5 years, but now when you change it up and you're constantly learning, I do enjoy that. But it keeps you on your toes for sure.
Certainly does.
It does. Is there a market that you haven't gotten into yet that you'd like to get into, or is there something that you've gotten some that you want to grow?
Yeah. Last couple of years, we've started to get into more of the tribal market. So we've done work for Muckleshoot, Tulalip, some of the other tribal entities around, and they're great to work with. They kind of act as their own. I mean, they're their own sovereign nation. Yep. So they have sometimes their own particular rules, regulations, procedures, etc. But I think it's a market that works out well for us because they're starting to economically diversify into a lot of different things as well. I think we've seen that a lot with the Puyallup tribe. They're building a big retail center down by the casino and the hotel, and they're investing a lot of dollars in their community, and that's resulting in a lot of different types of projects. So I think that's a really good long-term market for us to be in, especially where we are in Tacoma. You know, we're well positioned to support tribal entities. Healthcare is another one. We're fairly established in healthcare and have invested heavily in healthcare, but I think we just want to take the next step in terms of our profile in that market, doing some bigger stuff and working with some different entities. But yeah, those are always, you know, not necessarily recession proof, but less recession prone than something like commercial office or retail.
As you're talking about medical, have you done surgery centers and some of the really high technical stuff yet? Have you gotten into all of that? Have you kind of run the gamut on there?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work for Multicare over the years. We've done a lot of work for Providence. We have a couple projects going up in Everett at the Providence campus up there.
Oh, really?
You know, working in hospital in an acute care setting is a different animal than working in an outpatient setting. Several years ago, we invested in a lot of infection control materials that we own. So we have demountable partitions in our warehouse. We have all the neg air machines, sticky mats, all that stuff, and training up your superintendents and all your field staff on infection control procedures and the right way to do things in that environment. You know, we want to make sure we're going to execute correctly before we just dive in. But Anders and I have a background, you know, in that type of work as well.
Okay.
From the work we did at Anderson. Anderson does a lot of healthcare work. So we received a good amount of training ourselves in that market and are trying to, you know, kind of pass that along and develop our own staff for that.
I feel if you can be successful in that market, you can be successful in a lot of others. There's a lot of, medical office, all those things are similar, and it's a step down. They kind of water down. So if you're successful, in my opinion, I'm probably not accurate, but if you can do the very complex, high difficulty jobs, I think that you can position yourself to do a lot of other things as well as personally, because I think when I started in churches and parochial schools. Yeah. I then went to do a couple other things in South Carolina, then went into hospitals and really learned how complex it is.
It's definitely a niche market that not everybody can do. And I think to your point, you know, if you can succeed doing that, you know, you can succeed in almost anything.
Yeah. And that's why, I think it's a great market, and I wish, I did enjoy doing it. I don't know that I'd want to get back into it because I'd have to jump into a big firm and do all those things, and I don't think I can touch it anymore, but it was a really good 2 years of experience there. You mentioned earlier startup, which is funny because it feels like startup, but when I hear you explain all the things that you're doing, it's like, it does not feel like a startup from the outside. There's a shift there from that startup mentality or that startup situation to where you are now. And I'm sure you had to make some adjustments. What kind of adjustments did you have to do to move from the $250/$300 printer into investing in all of these new technologies for? Yeah,
good question. Well, you know, when we started, it was two of us. So we're dividing, you know, the responsibilities equally. And as you grow, you really try and focus on putting the building blocks in place that can take over some of those duties. For instance, you know, what I do more on the business is business development, estimating, pre-construction, and then I also oversee accounting and administration and marketing. Anders oversees more of the operations, so all the project managers, superintendents report to him. So as you know, as we grew, you know, we didn't have an accountant or a controller, you know, to start. We outsourced it. So bringing that function within the business, bringing marketing within the business, bringing estimating within the business, and really, you know, learning to delegate all those things, which can be hard, you know, I think for all of us, because we like things to be done a certain way, especially at Colvos, we like it to be done a certain way. But as you grow and you get a comfort level with your folks and you hire good people, which I think is the most important part, and you work closely with them as well, but part of my responsibility as a leader in the business is to step back once, that function can function autonomously, so to speak. So part of my job is to get out of the way, but also, fill in the gaps as things grow. And I think it was probably the 5-year point or so. And at that point, we maybe had 25 employees. So we had some of those building blocks in place. And COVID also hit during that time. So that was interesting. One of the silver linings, I suppose, with COVID, I think it really galvanized our company a little bit, brought us closer, even though we were segregated for a while. But we were fortunate in that all of our projects that we were working on a lot of healthcare projects at the time, were considered essential. And we really didn't miss a beat. And I think that was really motivating for our staff. Part of it was luck, but I think our staff really appreciated that they could have some continuity, moving forward with life at that time. And it really brought us together. And we have a very low turnover rate, especially since that time. And I think, a big part of that is once you get that culture established and people are on board with it and really enjoy coming to work because they know it's a safe place and a productive place where they can do their thing and operate unencumbered, they really start to flourish. So since that time, like I said, part of my job is really being a little more strategic, stepping back, filling gaps is a lot of what I do. If I see a problem anywhere in the business, I try and jump in and help, even if it's, not my direct responsibility, but I kind of feel like that's my job, right? Is really to support our employees if they need help or if there's questions, if there's always problems in this business. And, construction is imperfect. We're building a custom product every time we take something on. And if I can jump in and help, it's satisfying for me too, because I kind of get back to my roots a little bit and can help or impart any knowledge that I have that gives me some satisfaction too.
Let's jump into, you touched on culture. Let's talk about that a little bit. I've experienced your culture from going to the block parties and knowing some of your other folks like Mike. And I, my personality a little more than probably people watching. But I like to mess with people, so every time you have a block party pop in, I always, joke around with your team there. Yeah. And they've got a great sense of humor, and we joke a little bit. And from the outside, it seems like you got a great culture, and it sounds from obviously internally you do too because you have low turnover. As you guys get bigger and grow, what are things that you have to do to keep that culture together and keep it consistent?
Yeah. So we really try and grow from within. We spend a lot of time developing our own employees. We have a pretty robust internship program. We recruit at 3 or 4 universities locally, bring those folks in, see if they're a good fit for our culture, and we're a good fit for them. And hopefully that transpires into a full-time position, and they can cut their teeth in those early years and really understand how we do things. I think it's a much different model than bringing in a lot of outside employees or poaching employees from other businesses. You're kind of rolling the dice there a little bit. So it's a big focus of ours. We do a lot of things internally, as a group. We celebrate every project that we complete, whether it's a lunch or a dinner or some sort of event. We have an internal monthly happy hour that we host down at McConey's.
When is that?
That's I think it's the 3rd Thursday of every month, so you're welcome to stop by. And things like that, we tell people they're non-mandatory, so they don't have to come. Right. But it's just an opportunity for folks to get together because you've got superintendents out in the field, and
Yeah.
it can get a little disparate with people not being able to see each other as often. But I think bringing people together is important. Communication is huge. We also put out an internal monthly newsletter that just keeps people abreast of, new projects that we're working on, or events that are coming up, or networking events that they may be able to participate in. And we encourage people to really live the values that we talk about. So being involved in the community. For instance, we're doing a pretty big project for Tacoma Rescue Mission down the street right now. Big expansion. And a lot of our folks go down there and volunteer. And not just our own project team members, but other folks in the company. And we've done that for years with other organizations too, like Seattle Union Gospel Mission and some others. So for us, every company has its own fit, so to speak. I think for us, we're kind of a no nonsense. We don't have drama. We don't have politics. When people show up, they know they're not going to have to deal with BS. We're there to do a job. It's fairly relaxed and not very management heavy, I would tell you. I always tell the folks that we hire, our job is to give you the tools that you need to do your job, give you a long leash to do it, and let you do your thing. We hired you because you're smart and you know what you're doing, and we want to develop you to be better. But I think people appreciate, that level of independence and respect for what they do, and knowing that they're not going to be micromanaged. Someone's always going to be looking over their shoulder. The boundaries that we operate in are very clear. The expectations are very clear. And I think people appreciate that clarity.
I agree. I think the monthly happy hour, I was just at Crux recently, and it's because of COVID. Prior to COVID, there was a lot more of that industry things going out, and it's until you do it anymore, and you go and actually get around a bunch of folks, just randomly, you have a bunch of people showing up that and they haven't seen in a while. Like, I miss that, and I think that's so important. Like, I used to live in DC. I mentioned that earlier, and we weren't doing it every night, but I would bet once a week you were out with people in the industry.
Yep.
You'd go to a baseball game, you go to a hockey game, the Nats or the Caps, and it was like an industry night. You'd always see people you knew, and it was great. And it was, I don't know, it was just that building friendships outside of the office or work was always nice. And I feel like I've lost that over the last 5 years, and I throw monthly events. Like, we do a lot of stuff, but it's different because when you're throwing an event and doing those, it's not the same as that casual people just kind of popping in and showing up. You're like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were going to be here. It's good to see you, kind of thing. And it's a lot easier when you're not hosting too. It's kind of nice when you're going to other people's stuff.
Yep.
But I think that's a really big just need that's missing. And I know the East Coast is different than the West Coast on kind of the work-life balance concepts and things like that, and we probably went too hard out on the East Coast. But I got here right before COVID, so I don't know what it was like before, but I feel like it would be really nice to get back to that level of just every once in a while you get to go out and see all the people you work with on a different level. Like
Agreed.
We talked about Rain. Like, I got to know Rain Schaub over the last several years, and the more I talk to him, the more I get to know him, and he's just one of those guys that unexpectedly really funny that I didn't realize before. He's just a great guy, and over time we're just chatting about more things, and I've gotten to know him over 3 years, which it could have been a lot easier pre-COVID, where it would have been maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
Those types. That's just an example of what we were talking about earlier, but I think doing that, getting back to that, would be really nice.
Yeah, it's huge. The contractor, engineer, architects industry is, we live in a fairly big area, but it's kind of a small, incestuous business.
It was in DC too. It was small out there. It still is.
Yeah, you work in it long enough, and you'll meet most of the people.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's what you want to do. growing up, going to these networking events for the first time when you're in your early 20s is daunting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're looking around, you don't,
It really
don't
is.
know anybody.
Yeah.
But over time, 5 years later, you're going to look around the room and 30 people.
Yeah.
And because it's such a relationship-based business, that's what you need to do to be successful, I think. And word spreads about your own reputation and what you're capable of, and part of it is helping other people too, right? So, like for instance, if I'm talking to a client that's in need of an architect, I'm happy to refer 3 guys that I know that can do a good job. And
I still practice, right?
that's why I mentioned it. That's why I mentioned
I'm
it.
just kidding.
But it's people helping people, right?
It is.
And it just comes full circle that way.
It does, and I think I had a general contractor that I worked with. He traveled all over the country for about 3 years with us, and it was because we were going into different cities and building. And I got to the point where it was so much easier to have the guy that knew your brand and knew what you're doing on site when you were having to travel. And I got into it's just like I got to that mode where I wanted to work with the people I liked, my friends. Like that's like if I didn't really like hanging out with you, I didn't really want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you can work with the people you really like, it makes things so much easier and so much more fun because there's a loyalty there, there's a trust there. And how many times you have to cover up for an architect? Like a lot, right?
Daily.
I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding because it's true. It's like, it's really legit, but it's like knowing that the contractor has your back or the architect has your butt and not going to throw you under the bus and those types of things, those matter. And then if you get lucky that you all have the same client and you can kind of build that and whatever it is, you got a team that kind of runs around and you'll have more teams. It's not always that same team, but I feel like those are things that really like build a really, really good product and good experience. And that's something else I miss from just the East Coast that we had built teams and stuff doing that. And it was a lot of fun. It was good. It's a relationship business.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned trust. I think that's what it is, right? I mean, particularly if you're going to hire a builder, and you're going to spend several $1 million on a project, first and foremost, you want to know that they're not going to screw you, right?
That's a big one.
That they got your back, that they're going to look out for your best interests and not try and, line their pockets. So, going back to the relationship thing, that's why. And then I guess going back to your question about, why don't we do as many of these networking and relationship things anymore? I want to say part of it's generational. I think, the younger generation has a different social outlet maybe than we do.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we find a way to really connect, help the younger folks connect with each other, because without that one-on-one personal conversation over a beer, just shooting the shit, you're not going to build that trust in that relationship that you need to have, to be successful later in life. And I think that's a bit lacking with some of the younger folks. Some it comes naturally and some it just doesn't. Yeah. So that's another thing we do is really try and push, let's get out of the office. Let's go meet some people. Let's go talk to people. We don't have to do Zoom meetings for every meeting. Let's do some in-person meetings.
I think that if you go back and you think about what our 20s looked like compared to what their 20s look like, not the same.
No.
Not the same at all. And is there a project that has impacted you that you can remember since you started Colvos to now, where that was just one project that just had a big impact, changed maybe how you felt about something or pushed you in a different direction?
Yeah. I would say any project that we do that the general public can enjoy. like we mentioned Corno Bravo, that would be one. The Owen Beach
I
renovation
was
that we
just
did.
about to ask Owen Beach. Every time I go out there, I just like, man, this is a great project.
Yeah.
Sorry, I jumped it, but I'm glad you said Owen Beach.
No, it was really cool. It was a public job. We don't do a ton of public work. It's about 5 to 10% of what we do. But I saw the bid advertisement for that, and I was like, man, how cool of a project would this be? I mean, for one thing, it looks straight out onto Colvos Passage, which we're named after. But Point Defiance Park, Owen Beach. I mean, it's really a high profile area of Tacoma, and it's a place people can just go enjoy, and to be a part of doing a full renovation of that and having such a great outpouring of support. And there was a lot of press about it and how great it was, and it was a successful project for us and for the client, for Tacoma Parks. So that gave us a lot of satisfaction, I would say.
Yeah, I think every time I go out there, it's packed.
Yep.
And it's just it's so different. It's a huge change, and I think that was one of my favorite projects in town. It was just everyone gets to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a place I can take my kids to.
Yeah.
I'm always I can tell them about some office renovation we did, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
They don't get to experience it.
Yeah, but if I tell
sure.
them, we're building an El Pollo Loco right now, the first one in the state.
Oh, really?
So they're over the moon about going to check that out. Out of all the cool stuff we do, they want to go to the El Pollo Loco. But Owen Beach is another one that they can go, dip their toes in the water and enjoy it, and that's fun.
That's great. That's great. We're talking about some culture. Now let's talk a little mentorship. To wrap up today, what would be some advice that you would give a young person, maybe an entrepreneur that's building their business, and they've got to make that next step into growth, where they've got to turn the corner now and be prepared for the next step?
Yeah. Well, when we started building Colvos, one of the things that we concentrated on was making sure that everything that we had was scalable. So, for instance, if we were going to bring in a new estimating software, it needed to be able to grow with the company. If we were going to bring in our accounting system, it needed to be able to grow with the company. If we were going to put a new process or procedure in place, I didn't want to change it 2 years later because we were 30% bigger. So I think just looking a little strategically into the future about, the things that you're doing today, what does that thing look like when I'm 3x the size? And if it doesn't make sense, maybe reevaluate that. Maybe there's some short-term pain for that long-term gain. For instance, when we started the company, we invested in Procore is our project management software, which I'm sure a lot of people in the business are familiar with. But as a new business, it's a very expensive investment. But we wanted to have that tool in our arsenal so that we could make our project managers and our superintendents successful. And we knew it was a platform that could grow as we grew. So that would be one thing is looking at your systems. The other thing would be making sure you've got all the talent positions identified and people in those positions that can grow along with the business as well. We have a lot of folks that started out with us as project engineers, which is kind of the entry level project management position. And some of those folks are senior project managers now. And, we set a career path for them to get where they are. But, that's another example of scalability, right? Because, we don't want to be hiring a senior project manager. We want to be developing the project engineer into the senior project manager. So thinking about, your people and your systems. The other thing, is making sure you have a good support system of partners. So for instance, in construction, that would be our bonding agent.
Yeah.
It would be our insurance broker. It would be our benefits broker, our CPA, our attorneys, making sure that, they have the capability not only to service company that does $2 million a year, but they can service a company that does $60 million a year. We focused on that a lot, and I think all but one of the same entities that we started out with in all those disciples, we still have today, and they were able to grow with us, and that's been really helpful.
Invest in your business, whether it's people or equipment or systems. I think that's rule number one when you're starting a business. And there's so many, I've met people that cut corners in different things, and it never, I don't want to say it never works, but it just makes things harder down the road. And I think culture is incredibly important, and anytime you have anything toxic, it just amplifies everything and makes everything worse. So I think you've nailed it on, obviously, with Colvos, and you guys have done a really good job in how you've grown the business, and I think it's a great model. And I'm excited that you're one of the sharks. I guess we'll call them sharks for the pitch on February 19th.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting to have you come in there and listen to the businesses and give them feedback. But I think that's really great feedback. Investing and investment into your team. You didn't say you said culture earlier. I'm just throwing it in there because I think what you guys have done there is incredible, and I think that's a big piece too. So,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I appreciate you coming in. I know this was your first podcast. You did an awesome job. I'm not sure how I did, but we'll see.
You did well. Yeah. No, and I guess I wanted to say I really appreciate what you're doing for Tacoma as well.
Oh, thank you.
It's Tacoma's an interesting town. It's it's gritty. It's got a lot of culture, but I think one thing it doesn't always have is a practical voice to speak for it. And I think you've lent that a lot. So that's been really cool to see and really important. So thanks for doing that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. And I think Tacoma in general, there's so many great businesses and people, and it's just getting everybody together. It's just combining it and working together. Not to get in politics, but I think Seattle just gave us a huge gift with the election, and I've been kind of talking about that lately, and I'm literally going to be talking to a couple of folks on the city council and just hopefully say, listen, here's an opportunity. If we can kind of rethink what we're doing here and open our doors to business, Tacoma could just blast off. Like it really, we just have to make it look more appealing. But anyway, there's a lot of things that we'd have to do. But I think, I'm just saying what I see, or I'm just preaching what I see, and it's people like you and Colvos that have turned Tacoma into something that it's no longer potential, it's opportunity. And I think it shifted that corner a while ago, and where people, Tacoma's always had potential. And I think it's more than potential. I think it's opportunity. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, and Tacoma's always had a bit of a stigma associated with it, right or wrong. It's a city that grows on you. I would say it grew on me. I used to subscribe to that stigma myself, and after a few years, it's like this is a great bedroom community town. But again, it's I think getting the voice out about how great the city is and can be is huge, because if we don't have people that are promoting it and sharing the stories and the success stories like you're doing, people aren't going to know. And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity down here.
It really is.
People should know about it.
And I agree. And if it weren't for folks like you coming in and jumping on the podcast and getting involved in doing these things, we wouldn't be able to do it. There wouldn't be anything to talk about. And I love doing it, and it's fun because I think what I enjoy most is probably the podcast, like having these conversations, because you get to learn about people, and there's usually some good jokes and some things that come out of it that you learn, and that's always fun too. But I think it's connecting with folks and hearing the stories, and then making you feel like, wow, Tacoma is is really great because you keep hearing story after story, and I think that's what keeps that fire going. So
Yeah, keep preaching.
yeah,
Keep preaching.
Thanks, man. Well, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and yeah, man, let's get on to
Swing
the
by
next
happy
thing.
hour.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
All right, thanks, Reed.
Thank you.